those sustainability reports, you know the ones, and just feel like you need like a whole dictionary just to understand what you're reading.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
It's like they're written for scientists.
Right.
But the thing is, we all need to know what's going on with the planet, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what we're doing today. We're diving into um, this report from Wise Living Now. It's called Critical Sustainability Statistics. And we're going to cut through all the jargon, get right to those key facts that everyone should know.
Sounds good to me.
Let's start with something that's been in the news a lot lately. The Earth's temperature. You probably know it's getting warmer, but did you know it's already 1.1 degrees Celsius warmer than it was before the Industrial Revolution?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it doesn't sound like a lot, 1.1 degrees, but,
Right, like how big of a deal can 1 degree really be?
well, when we're talking about the entire planet, even a small change can have huge consequences. Think of it like this. The Earth is running a fever.
Okay, that makes sense. So what are the symptoms of this planetary fever?
Well, for one thing, we're seeing more extreme weather events, more heat waves, more floods, more intense storms.
Yeah, I feel like we've definitely been seeing that more and more.
Exactly. And then there's the rising sea levels, which threaten coastal communities around the world. It's all connected.
And this report points to carbon dioxide as a major culprit. Right, they say levels are at 419 parts per million.
Yeah, 419 parts per million. And to put that into perspective, we haven't seen levels that high in over 800,000 years.
800,000 years.
Yeah.
Wow. So what's causing this massive increase in carbon dioxide?
A lot of it comes down to our reliance on fossil fuels. Every time we drive a car, use electricity generated from coal, we're adding more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere.
So like everyday choices really do have an impact.
Every choice matters, absolutely.
Speaking of everyday choices, think about the last time you saw a plastic bottle or grocery bag just lying on the ground. It's more than just an eyesore, right? It's part of a much bigger issue.
Right, it's easy to forget about it once it's out of sight, but it doesn't just disappear.
This report says that 8 million metric tons of plastic end up in our oceans every single year.
It's a mind-boggling amount, isn't it? It's like dumping a garbage truck full of plastic into the ocean every minute.
Every minute, that's just
It's hard to even grasp, right?
Yeah, it is. But what happens to all that plastic?
Well, it doesn't really decompose the way other waste does. Instead, it breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, eventually becoming what we call microplastics.
Microplastics?
Yeah, they're these tiny particles of plastic that end up everywhere in the ocean. And the problem is, marine life, they can't always distinguish between these microplastics and their food.
Oh, so they're eating the plastic.
Exactly. And then those microplastics can travel up the food chain.
So it's in the seafood we eat.
It can be.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so another thing that's easy to overlook, or maybe not even see happening as much in our day-to-day lives, deforestation. What's the deal with deforestation and why should we be concerned?
Deforestation is a huge issue, and it's happening on a massive scale. We're talking about losing around 10 million hectares of forest every year.
10 million hectares. That doesn't mean much to me. How big is that?
Well, imagine an area roughly the size of Iceland, just gone every year.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's significant.
It is, and the consequences are far-reaching. We lose biodiversity as countless species lose their habitats. We see more soil erosion, which makes it harder to grow food. And to make matters worse, deforestation releases even more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, further accelerating climate
It's
change.
just like a domino effect, isn't it? One thing impacting another and another.
Exactly. Everything is connected.
Okay, so we've talked about a warming planet, plastic pollution, deforestation. All these things require resources, use resources. This report also talks about the growing concern of water scarcity. What's the situation there?
Yeah, water is essential, and we often take it for granted, right? But the reality is, over 2 billion people around the world face water scarcity on a daily basis. They turn on the tap and there's not enough clean water, or any at all.
That's hard to imagine.
It's a global crisis, and it's being made worse by a combination of factors. Climate change is disrupting weather patterns, leading to more droughts in some areas. And at the same time, we have unsustainable water use practices in many parts of the world.
Okay, so what can we do? It all seems a bit overwhelming.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed, but there are things we can all do. Even small changes can make a difference. Think about simple things like taking shorter showers, fixing leaky faucets, being mindful of how much water we're using in our daily lives.
Every drop counts.
Exactly.
So we've covered some pretty heavy topics today.
We have.
Is there anything from this report, anything at all, that gives you hope?
Despite all the challenges, there are some glimmers of hope. One thing that stands out to me is the growth of renewable energy. We're seeing more and more countries investing in solar, wind power. Globally, renewable energy now accounts for 11.7% of total energy consumption.
11.7%. That's,
Not enough. Not yet. But it's a step in the right direction, and it shows that change is possible.
yeah, progress, not perfection, right? So we've talked about a lot today, everything from a warming planet to the plastic piling up in our oceans, deforestation, water scarcity, even, some signs of hope with renewable energy. What's the one thing, if you could just pick one thing from everything we've talked about today that really stuck with you?
That's a tough one. I think for me, if I had to pick just one, it's the interconnectedness of it all.
What do you mean by that?
Well, this report really highlights how everything is connected. The choices we make, the actions we take, they have ripple effects. It's not just about one issue in isolation. It's about the web of life on Earth and how we're all connected. What about you?
Yeah, that's a good one. It makes you think about what you said earlier about how every choice matters.
It does.
And on that note, if you're listening to this and, you're feeling a little overwhelmed, or maybe you're just curious to learn more, I highly recommend checking out Wise Living Now. They have a ton of great information on their website. They go even deeper into all of these topics and more. It's a great resource.
It is.
Well, with that, I think we'll wrap it up for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep asking questions, stay curious, and let's all try to make a positive impact on the planet.